You are listening to a Life in Quebec podcast. For more, visit lifeinquebec.com.
Okay, so we're recording, and it's the 24th of June 2015, and this is a recording about the magazine that's coming up. The next voice you will hear is Michael, and he is leading this podcast. Okay, so go.
Well, my name is Michael Bourguignon. I'm the editor of Life in Quebec magazine. I'm sitting here with the publisher, Andrew Greenfield, and managing editor Farnell Morissette. We've just put to bed the July-December issue of the magazine. It's hot off the press. Should be on a newsstand near you or in your hot little hands if you're a subscriber. So we just want to talk a little bit about what's in the magazine this time around. And to start that off, I'd like to ask, Farnell if he'd like to weigh in on some of the articles that we have in the magazine and how we came about choosing them.
Well, sure. Choosing the articles is always... It's always a bit of a tricky thing because we try to have something for everyone while not trying to spread ourselves too thin. There's some sports, there's some culture, there's some art, there's some politics. We really hope there's something for everybody, but it's the kind of thing that we're hoping everyone can find something for them, and the articles reflect that.
I think one of the things that really does stand out in the magazine is exactly what you said, the diversity of it. There's quite a lot in terms of content. It runs the gamut from sports to politics to culture. Always with a focus on life in Quebec, of course. Is this a magazine, do you think, that will be of interest to people who do not necessarily live in Quebec? I would actually maybe address that to Andrew.
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, as the title suggests, the magazine is called Life in Quebec magazine, so in essence, it's about what's going on in the province or Quebec-related things that would affect people or across the province, or that people would have an interest in. That being said, there are a load of people that have, throughout their lives, have spent a bit of time in the province, or they're married to Quebecers, or indeed they're learning French, or speak French to a reasonable level. So, although it has a Quebec focus, it's relevant for anybody across Canada who has an interest in our province.
And I think certainly anybody who has an interest in activities in Quebec, if they're in the Quebec City region over the next few months, we have things to talk about in the magazine, such as the Quebec City Celtic Festival that's coming up in the fall. We have a really interesting article, or actually column, by Peter Black talking about an interesting location in Quebec City that is actually a bed and breakfast with quite a rich history. What else would you say is in the magazine that might turn heads and be of interest? Farnell?
The one thing that stands out to me, on top of obviously the great things you said, is it's always great when politicians agree to sit down with some of our writers and just talk about the things that are on their minds, their vision for what's happening in Quebec. And it's impossible for us not to mention that Agnès Maltais, who's a PQ MNA, is featured in one of the articles just about her and her vision of things. It's really great to sort of bring that, especially in English, since the article is available in English and in French, since it's not very often that that kind of message from a separatist party is shared in English. And it's, whether or not you agree with that is entirely up to you, and we're not making a judgment, but it's nice to be able to at least share the information so everybody can make up their own minds.
With this magazine, we're actually breaking new ground. The podcast itself is a good example of that. It's the first where we've sat down and actually talked about the content of the magazine. And podcasting is something that we'll be doing a lot more of with Life in Quebec. We're also online, of course. So maybe Andrew, as publisher, you can tell us a little bit about where Life in Quebec is going in the future.
Well, I think we really need to step back a little bit and look at where it's come from and how we've got to where we've got. And the website, actually, lifeinquebec.com, will be 5 years old in August. That was a vision that we had originally once we'd started. We wanted a voice for all things Quebec and all things Québécois. We launched the website in English, predominantly purely because there's so many people in the province. Although we accept and actually embrace and respect the fact that French is the primary language here, and as it should be. However, there's a lot of English spoken in the province, and there's a lot of people that understand it and understand it well. So that's why we decided to launch the website in English. The magazine came about 2.5 years ago, and And that was a result of the success of lifeinquebec.com. So we launched the magazine, publishing a couple of issues a year. We're now up to 3 issues, hopefully going to 4 next year. Launched the magazine, and it's doing very well. This issue that's out on July 3rd is issue 9. And because the magazine is being very well received by advertisers and indeed subscribers, we felt that we needed to do something else on the website. Now, because of the traffic it gets, the traffic is superb. We felt it was right to move into podcasts and vidcasts, and that's where we're going next with this. So we've got 2 or 3 platforms there. We've got the online media with lifeinquebec.com. We've got the print media with Life in Quebec magazine, which is growing exponentially. And the latest thing that we're launching is the podcast and vidcast. So you're going to see us out and about across the province in the coming weeks, months, and years ahead. So hopefully you're going to be speaking to us.
And speaking of exponential growth, the magazine itself is going across the province for the first time, isn't it?
Yes, it is. This is something that when we sat down on day one and decided what we wanted to do with the publication, we always said at some point one of the aims for it was to get it across the province. But of course we couldn't do that initially. We needed to get the magazine out there and get the name known and build as we go. So the first few issues were just in the Quebec City region, Chaudière-Appalaches and Capitale-Nationale areas. From December last year, that issue went into the region I've just mentioned and the Eastern Townships. March this year, March 2015, was Eastern Townships, Chaudière-Appalaches, Capitale-Nationale and the Montreal area. Because of the success of that, this issue, this time around, is in every region in the province. So we've achieved one of the goals we set out to, or that we set out 2.5 years ago. It's taken us 2.5 years, but we've done it. The July issue is across the province, and we couldn't be happier about that. And
it's been worth the wait.
I think so. I mean, we said that we could have done it from day one, but we wouldn't have done it well. We wanted to build the product and then get it across the province when we were ready, and that's what we've done. And I think I ought to bring Farnell in here because I don't want to speak for him, but I'm sure he's got comments on how and why we've gone across the province too.
Well, it's obviously, like Andrew said, it's something we said we wanted to do eventually. It's something that we obviously weren't able to do at the beginning because you're just starting out. You've got that learning curve to do. The first issues will forever be in our hearts, but let's be honest, they were they definitely weren't as good as the current issues. And on top of that, it took some time for people to sort of understand what we were doing in the first place, and then once they understood, get on board and see what we were doing that had value and had interest. And on the same side from readers, just for a little bit, there was a lot of people that just, I think rightly and fairly, weren't quite sure what we were doing. And then when they saw the magazine grow and see that it really was, like Andrew said, a voice for all things Quebec and Quebecois, really got on board. And it's great to be able to share that across the province now. It's growing, and we hope it keeps growing that way.
So Life in Quebec is getting bigger and better on multiple platforms. Final questions, where can people log on and how do we subscribe?
So, of course, you've got lifeinquebec.com, which is it's there 24/7. It's a very popular website with all news and information and podcasts and all that sort of stuff on there. So you can go to lifeinquebec.com. In terms of where you can get the magazine, it's available in nearly 400 locations now across the province. In fact, over 400 locations across the province, and it will be from July 3rd. It's available in magazine racks and that you'll see in shopping centres and bars and restaurants and all that sort of thing. Or indeed, if you did want to get a copy mailed directly to you, if you log on to lifeinquebec.com and just click on subscribe, all the information is there, and you can join the growing band of supporters and the people that are in the club that receive their own personal copy in the mail. And there is a small fee for that, but it's pretty much covering postage costs. That's what I've got to say on that.
So it's a great club to belong to, and if you're not in it, please come on and join.
Thank you for listening to the Life in Quebec podcast. For more news, commentary, editorials, and opinion, visit lifeinquebec.com/podcast.